continue on the study going through committed relationships. Now we're going to go to 1 Corinthians chapter 7, divorce and remarriage. Let's get into that. Now, for the marriage you wrote about, it is good for a man not to marry. Since there's so much immorality, each man should have his own wife, each woman her own husband. The husband should fulfill his marital duty to his wife, likewise the wife to her husband. The wife's body does not belong to her alone, but also to her husband. The same way, the husband's body does not belong to him alone, but also to his wife. Do not deprive each other except by mutual consent, and for a time, so that you may devote yourselves to your prayer. Then come together again, so that Satan will not tempt you, because your lack of self-control. So I say this as a concession, not as a command. I wish that all men were as I am. Each man has his own gift from God. One has to give this gift, another has that. And now to the unmarried and widows I say it is good for them to stay unmarried as I am. But if they cannot control themselves, they should marry, for it is better to marry than to burn with passion. To the married I give this command, not I, but the Lord. My wife must not separate from her husband. But if she does, she must remain unmarried, else be reconciled to her husband. The husband must not divorce his wife. To the rest I say this, I, not the Lord. If anybody has a wife who is not a believer, and she is willing to live with him, he must not divorce her. And if a woman has a husband who is not a believer, he is willing to live with her, she must not divorce him. The unbelieving husband has been sanctified through his wife, and the unbelieving wife has been sanctified through her believing her a believing husband. Otherwise, your children will be unclean. But as it is, they are holy. But if the unbeliever leaves, let him do so. A believing man or woman is not bound in such circumstances. God has called us to live in peace. How do you know, wife, whether you will save your husband, or you know, husband, whether you will save your wife? Nevertheless, each one should retain the place in life the Lord is saying to him, to which God has called him. The rule I lay down in all the churches was a man already circumcised when he was called. He should not become uncircumcised. Was a man circumcised when he was called? He should not be circumcised. Circumcision is nothing. No, circumcision is nothing. Keeping God's command is what counts. Each one should remain in a situation he was in when God called him. Whether you were a slave or you were called, don't let it trouble you. Although if you can gain your freedom, do so. For, for he who was a slave when he was called by the Lord repeated. Similarly, he who was a free man when he was called as Christ's slave, you were bought as a price. Do not become slaves of men, but as each man as responsible to God should remain in the situation God called him to. Now about verse, I have no command from the Lord, but I give a judgment as one who by the Lord's mercy are trustworthy. Because of the present Christ, I think that it is good for you to remain as you are. Are you married? Do not seek a divorce. Are you unmarried? Do not look for a wife. If you do marry, you have not sinned. Marriage, if a virgin marries, she has not sinned. But those who marry will face being chosen in this life. Want to spare you this. What I mean, brothers, is that the time is short. From now on, those who have wives should live as if they had none. Those who mourn as if they're not. Those who are happy as if they were not. Those who buy something as if they were not theirs to keep. Those who use the things of the world as if not engrossed in them. For this world is in its present form is passing away. I would like you to be free from concern. An unmarried man is concerned about the Lord's affairs, how he can please the Lord. But a married man is concerned about the affairs of this world and how he can please his wife, and his interests are divided. A married woman or virgin is concerned about the Lord's affairs. Her aim is to be devoted to the Lord in both body and spirit. But a married woman is concerned about the affairs of this world. How she can please her husband. I'll say this for God, who back to the you. but that you may live in the right way in undivided devotion to the Lord. If anyone thinks he is acting properly toward the virgin he is engaged to, if he is getting along in years, he feels he ought to marry, should do as he wants. He's not sinning. He should get married. But the man who has settled the matter in his mind, who's under no compulsion, has control of his own will, who has made up his mind not to marry the virgin, this man also does the right thing. But then he who marries the virgin does right. But he who does not marry her does even better. A woman is bound to her husband as long as he lives. But if her husband dies, she is free to marry anyone she wishes, but he must belong to the Lord. In my judgment, she is happier if she stays as she is. I think that I too have the Spirit of God. Thanks for the 9 people tuning in. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. Let's break this down. Paul had 2 sons about those who considering marriage. First, believers should not marry unbelievers. Paul argues that the righteous have nothing in common with the unrighteous, though the two have be unequally yoked with different values, standards, and directions in life. Spiritually, they will be incompatible. Second, Paul wanted those who were unmarried to consider the advantages of being single. They were free to be concerned about the Lord's affairs. Once a Christian couple is married, they are not to withhold themselves from each other sexually. Their bodies not only belong to themselves, but they also belong to each other for the purpose of fulfilling their sexual needs. On the other hand, no spouse can be responsible to satisfy the other person's lust. That can only be resolved in a spouse's relationship with God. Neither spouse has the right to violate the other person's conscience or defile the person physically in any way, since their bodies are temples of God. Marriage should be honored by all. Marriage should be kept pure, for God will judge the adultery and all other sexually immoral. Sexual intimacy and fulfillment in marriage can only happen in the context of mutually shared love and trust. But Paul is advising Christian couples not to separate. If they do, they must remain unmarried, work toward reconciliation. There are times when a relationship is so strained that separation may be necessary for the good of the family. Ideally, a couple should stay together and work things out. But if one spouse becomes physically or mentally abusive, it may be advisable to separate but not divorce. Scripture teaches that wives and children should be submissive. But Scripture also teaches that husbands and parents should be loving and patient. Husbands have no right to abuse their wives, and parents have no right to abuse their children. To do so is a double offense because those in authority have the ability to provide for and protect victims of abuse. Those in authority became the abusers. Their subjects not only suffer from abuse, but they also lose their protection. The state has the right to intervene, the right to protect battered wives and abused children, the right to prosecute the offenders. Should a couple be unequally yoked, the believer must stay committed to the marriage for the purpose of the spouse's salvation. The unbeliever may leave. If this occurs, he is not bound to the marriage. And only 2 grounds for divorce: remarriage. The first is abandonment by an unbelieving spouse. The second is adultery. The Mosaic law, the adulterer would have been stoned to death. The main spouse obviously would have been free to remarry under the law of grace. But the inclination could be attempted. But if that does not prove to be successful, the faithful spouse has the right to divorce and remarry. Well, so that's it for this lesson on the study that started this week, week 30. It's called Growing Through Committed Relationships. Yep. Going through committed relationships. Tomorrow we'll be into Proverbs 22, verse 6, training up a child. Be back at 11:45 for the 50 dynamic duos. Against that, keep moving. So until then, thanks for hitting the like button, subscribe to the channel. Talk to you soon.